Thanks very much, Pedro. Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to Speyside. It's very good to see so many of you here, and I understand that some of you enjoyed the local produce in the bar last night, but it's very good to see you here. For those of you who might have wondered where the photograph that Fisheries Management Scotland have been putting up on their cover slides is taken from, it's part of Speyside. It's actually quite an old photograph of Glenfeshie, owned and managed by Wildland before they started their transition to the future. But I'm going to talk today about the Spey Catchment Initiative, which I've put here, a successful public-private partnership, and we've got some very exciting opportunities for the future. Pedro graciously said that I had learnt quickly. Please let me assure you, I am still on a very steep learning curve. To introduce the initiative, it was started by the Spey Board back in 2010. We, at that stage, had a very glossy catchment management plan pictured up at the top right here, which was written 20 years ago now, and really quite forward-thinking in its day. It talked of partnership working to achieve shared objectives, but there was no commitment to implementation. And the Spey Board felt that it was important to start moving this forwards, and so we put in place the administration and support to enable that to happen, matched with considerable support from Nature Scot and in particular the Cairngorms National Park Authority, and we're most grateful to them for their stalwart support so far. Over the last decade, it has grown into quite a unique organisation. It's grown year on year and comprises now all of the organisations that you see there. And it's become a highly successful public-private partnership. Now, last year when I spoke to the conference, albeit virtually, I talked to you about this project, the River Calder Restoration Project, which marks a step change in our approach to river restoration management. Rather than focus on short stretches of burns, we started looking at tributaries as a sub-catchment of the broader catchment itself and focusing on projects that would make landscape-scale changes to build sustainability and resilience. With this one, we put in 29 large wood structures, water gates, deer fenced enclosures with riparian tree planting and natural regeneration. But these were linked into the broader estate management and forestry plans, really showing that we could put in place landscape scale projects and landscape scale change to build sustainability rather than focusing on short sections of burns. Now, quite a lot has happened since I spoke to you last year, and we built on the success of the Calder project by implementing another even bigger one in the headwaters of the Spey with the Upper Spey Restoration Project in cooperation and collaboration with GFG Alliance and Jahama Highland Estates. Having put 29 large wood structures into the Calder, we put 65 into the headwaters of the Spey, which is pictured here. This was along a 6-kilometre stretch of the river above Spey Dam below it. Spey Dam is about 12 miles below it. And the fish pass within Spey Dam is currently a barrier to fish passage. GFG are putting in place modifications to overcome that and to preempt that and to prepare the river for the arrival of more Atlantic salmon. We've put this project in place. It'll create increased spawning and juvenile fish habitat, linked also to not just riparian tree planting, but the broader estate forestry plans that GFG are going to be putting in place in due course. But last year saw some quite radical changes elsewhere within the Spey Catchment Initiative. I felt it was time for a change of mindset. And we had to consider these projects at landscape scale, not as the exception, but as the norm. Because if we're going to restore our salmon, we have to think big. And I felt that it would be appropriate to hold a strategy day, which we did, sponsored by Diageo at the end of April last year. And we agreed With the help of, we got Luke Commons from the Tweed Forum and Alison Baker from the Forth Rivers Trust to come up and talk to us about their experiences over the last decade so that we could try to learn from that. And as a result, we agreed by consensus that we needed to adopt an even more holistic approach to catchment management than we had taken hitherto. We need to put in place increased tree planting beyond the riparian tree planting that we're doing. We need to look at peatland restoration and also carbon sequestration, because ultimately everything that happens on the land around our rivers ultimately flows into and ends up in our rivers, affecting our salmon. But we also needed to establish the Spey Catchment Initiative, I felt certainly, as a legally recognised entity, because legally it didn't exist. It had existed for over 10 years, and yet it wasn't a limited company. And although it's a highly successful partnership, it wasn't a partnership in the legal sense. So I put together an extensive paper outlining all of the options available to us, which I had checked by our lawyers as to whether we should be perhaps a company limited by guarantee, whether we should be a charity, possibly even as a trust. A Scottish charitable incorporated organisation, or SCIO, was another option. Community interest company or a cooperative. All of these we considered, and the pros and cons of each. And the Catchment Initiative, all of the partners decided by consensus that we should become a SCIO, a Scottish Charitable Incorporated Organisation. I put in a comprehensive application to Oscar in November last year, and just under a month later, it was approved and the initiative became a SCIO on the 14th of December last year. The Catchment Initiative has already developed a sound reputation for making things happen, actually implementing projects on the ground, rather than simply doing research and producing reports. But we had other things going on last year as well. Major corporations had started to approach us, asking if we could help them implement their sustainability objectives. Alongside that, we also had major corporations buying up Speyside estates. Standard Life had bought Raleigh near Dalwhinnie. Gresham House have bought Glen of Rothes between Rothes and Elgin. Kinrara was bought recently by Brewdog. And it's vital that we work with these organisations as they put in place their sustainability objectives so that we can take a joined-up approach. And further to that, we were also selected for a trial of LENS, Landscape Enterprise Networks, which Ian Syme mentioned in his previous presentation, which is a tremendous and very exciting opportunity for us for the future. Now, as Ian mentioned, LENS, or Landscape Enterprise Networks, hasn't been tried here in Scotland. It's new here. It was started by Nestle and consultants 3 Keel down in England, principally or initially in Cumbria, and led to a very significant investment in the Eden Rivers Trust. And it hasn't been used here in Scotland. It's worked well elsewhere in England, I believe in Yorkshire and East Anglia, as well as parts of Europe, in particular Italy, Hungary and Poland. And what it does is it brings together organisations with a shared interest in funding nature-based solutions within a specific area. And by that, I principally mean catchments. Now, our track record of project implementation through partnership working made us an ideal candidate for the trial. And what LENS does is it brokers negotiations, because my chairman, Sandy Scott, had said to me, Roger, if you receive a significant investment into the initiative, it's going to bring with it a whole load of legal and governance obligations. And we don't have the experience in negotiating those. LENS, through 3 Keel, will help broker those negotiations, ultimately leading to transactions between particularly the private corporate sector, who are the buyers and investors, and us, the Spey Catchment Initiative, as the deliverers, particularly with regard to the legal and governance requirements. It will also build capacity within our organisation and yours in due course so that we can do this ourselves and broker these negotiations henceforth. So LENS is linking the corporate demand sector for green investment in nature-based solutions to the supply sector, which is not just the Spey Catchment Initiative, but all of you as well, who are capable of delivering it. Now, as part of this, we need to build capacity for the future. I'm very confident that investment is going to flow into our new organisations and others like it within the sector. But as my chairman said to me again, he said, Roger, I don't think money is going to be your problem. I think there'll be a lot of that available. Your bigger problem is going to be putting boots on the ground and actually making it happen. So we're in the process of developing the structure to move our new organisation forwards. But as part of this, and as Pedro has mentioned, we need to upskill if we're going to meet this challenge. And we need to put in place organisations capable of delivering landscape-scale projects. To do that, we're going to need new skills. Biologists and bailiffs and river directors are simply not going to cut it. We need to develop new skills in green finance, fundraising, identifying the corporate demands from those major investors out there and working out how we can put that into place in terms of projects. Carbon sequestration will be another area, all important skills that we're going to need to learn. We also need to put in place the appropriate governance to secure these opportunities. Otherwise, there simply won't be the confidence in these corporate bodies in our ability to deliver them. And that's why I was keen to make the new Spey Catchment Initiative, SCIO, a two-tier organisation. We already have a steering group that's made up of the partners within the initiative that act as its management committee, but by being two-tier, there will be a board of trustees or directors sitting above that, providing guidance on governance, funding, and strategy. That in itself will provide the governance that we need for the organisation to grasp these opportunities. Now, our Board of Trustees is going to include a chartered accountant, a lawyer, and specialists in sustainability and nature restoration. And I'm delighted to announce today that that Board of Trustees will be chaired by Martin Gilbert. Martin is a passionate salmon angler, but he's also the co-founder and for many years the chief exec of Aberdeen Asset Management. Until recently, he was vice chair of Standard Life Aberdeen. He currently chairs Revolue, Tosca Fund, the Net Zero Technology Centre, and Scottish Golf. He brings with him a wealth of experience in the financial sector. But crucially for us, he will bring confidence to both public and private green investments into the Spey Catchment through the Spey Catchment Initiative, and we're very much looking forward to working with him. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.